and welcome especially to you, Dr. Gillian Lockitch. Dr. Gillian Lockitch is the last of our awesome authors for me to interview, um, who participated in From Trauma to Thrive. And today we are going to talk about From Trauma to Thrive, right?
Right. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so Jill, I want to read this piece that you wrote. This book is just amazing. There are just so many amazing little pieces that I could take out, and every paragraph is like a lesson. There's like inspiration. There's like, wow, if this person could do this, then I can do this too. So let's go to this because we want to talk really about a series of traumatic events in your life, not just one thing, but a whole series about it. So let me read what you wrote. That electric energy that shocked me awake, catapulting me into a traumatic 4-month nightmare, was ultimately transformed into creative energy through which I found my life purpose. I discovered my personal roadmap to decelerate my aging, avoid common age-associated disorders, and challenge me to thrive for decades ahead. Now my purpose is to help others discover their own unique roadmap with the epigenetic tools that are right for them. So we are talking here at the accident you had where your back was injured.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so but before that you lost your husband and you'd
Yeah.
resigned from your job where you were hugely successful and celebrated and enjoyed it and was good at it, and you had a happy life with your husband, and you were looking forward to retirement and spending more time with him, and then boom, your husband passed away. I think you've already resigned from your job, so that wasn't there to anchor you, but you built yourself a new life, and then the next thing happened, and that was now you are immobilized with a back injury and you have to give up one of the things that you love that kept you going, which was a love of dancing. Is that the short version of your story, if I remember right?
Yes. Yeah. Basically, it was sort of a transition from, when I was sort of 55 and really had always believed, the Betty Friedan thing that you can have it all, a happy home life, and an amazing career. And I had it, and I was very blessed and very fortunate. And then over a period of time, as you mentioned, there were a number of catastrophes. And probably the first one was the loss of my husband. Um, we had an amazing marriage. We were married for 34 years. We have three wonderful kids. And then, thereafter, a series of other things. I decided to retire. I sold my house, moved downtown, lost my network of people. But with retirement, I thought, good always comes out of it. And I was prepared for retirement in that I knew all sorts of things that I wanted to do. So it wasn't a question of just losing my network and losing my identity in a way, because, we identify very strongly with the work that we do. So that was when I decided to learn about ballroom dancing. And it's, people sort of say, how do you start ballroom dancing in your 60s? Well, anybody can. You just have to realize that you're not going to be like a 25-year-old Latin dancer, but it's probably the best physical activity that one can do as an older individual, and you can do it on and on. I'm still dancing, and I'm in my 70s. So all of that was sort of helping me through the various traumas of downsizing, my kids being away. And then I'd always had low back problems. I think like probably it's the statistics are something like 80% of adults have experienced back issues during their lifetime. But what happened with this was I didn't realize that the osteoarthritis that was coming with sort of growing older had actually impinged on my sciatic nerve. And so what happened was I had sciatic nerve compression, and that was an absolutely catastrophic injury that, as you said, kept me for 4 months, basically on a couch in excruciating pain, overeating, becoming depressed, not wanting to see anybody. And ultimately, another sort of incident happened that precipitated it into an emergency that I needed emergency spinal surgery. And your point about trauma can actually end up really helping one into another path of triumph is
Mm.
really good, because that's essentially what happened to me.
Yeah, because you were not unhappy being a doctor. You
No,
had
loved
a
it.
yeah, you had a successful career, loved what you were doing, were um, um, probably like me thought this is my passion and my goal in life, because I also I also thought I'm happy with doing what I'm doing. This is my talents and I'm happy with it. And then the next minute you go through trauma and there's a whole new thing. And you don't even look for it. I mean, I never looked for wanting to be a counselor. This is like it so accidentally happened. And it's one of the biggest blessings from me having gone through my own trauma is that suddenly I found that there's a whole other dimension to me which I have never ever known about.
Mm.
And there's another word that you use in there, in that paragraph, which is purpose. Because it's amazing how many people don't have purpose in life. And I want to talk about that a little bit, to get to a thing where you actually understand there's a higher, different level. Like you're in a helping profession, and when you're in a helping profession, you always feel like you have purpose because you are helping people. But what's the difference for you with what you are doing now in purpose?
That's an actually fascinating and interesting question. It's something that I've obviously thought a lot about. So when I decided to take early retirement from medicine, I had spent 25 years as a medical specialist with my major interests in pediatrics, so development, and in human biochemistry. And I kind of realized that I no longer was interested in diagnosing and preventing and treating disease. And I felt that what was happening with medicine was that we are so specialized, and the quality and the type of care that we're able to give is so extraordinary now that people have become fragmented into their organ systems. So really, you have a hepatologist advising you about your liver disease, and a
Mm.
nephrologist talking about kidneys, and a neurologist talking about brains. And there really wasn't an occasion that I could see where, for example, a family practitioner or the internist or the pediatrician who are really the people who should be looking at the whole individual, the way our billing systems happen, and time and all of that. That was sort of really not happening. And so for an individual person who has multiple issues, there wasn't the holistic sort of approach to everything, how they sleep, how they exercise. People would be focused on the one particular problem that they were bringing, that the patient was bringing to them. And I kind of had a lot of joy in science, but I thought it was time to explore the other side of me. And so that led to really almost 7 years of me focusing on the art side. I had my website, my previous website, called Review from the House, where I did theater reviews and I wrote about travelogues. I learned how to be, I did wine tasting courses. And it was generally, and I did lots of book reviews of non-medical books. And so I really was enjoying that. And I started the ballroom dancing. And it really was sort of divorced in a way from anything to do with medicine. And then after the surgery, when I decided that I had to change the way I was living, and really change my aging trajectory, I started looking into medicine again. And
Because of the osteoporosis, that's what got your
well,
attention.
because of the overall ill health that had sort of crept up on me during the 4 months that I was basically immobile and in pain. I'd gained 40 pounds. My eating was appalling. I was snacking all the
I,
time. I was
yeah, I
depressed.
can absolutely so understand this because for the last 2 years, since I've had COVID, which is right in the beginning, I have had 6 months of no energy, headaches, not non-stop. Straight after that, I had a slip disc, and so I
Oh
was
my
flat
goodness.
on my back for 3 weeks. Then I had, from low immunity, I had cat scratch disease, so I was down again. And then I had bronchitis twice in a row. So it was when I eventually felt strong again. I couldn't go for walks on the mountain again. This is what happened to me in 2 years. The mountain
Mm.
where I used to go walking, I can't even walk at my normal pace anymore. It wrecked me. I picked up so much weight without even snacking because I'm not a snacking person. It is just I can't believe how weak my body have become in 2 years. It's for me beyond comprehension. So I understand what you're saying, and
Yeah, it's
it is
interesting
not
actually,
something that
not
yeah.
just to pick up on that. So with COVID, I mean, my main physical activity, other than walking, which I do a lot of, with my urban poles, so that I'm getting a full body workout, is obviously ballroom dancing. And with the restrictions and everything here, I found that I wasn't dancing. And I think the inactivity was huge. And it's taken me, I've started back dancing a couple of months ago, and it's taken me a long time to even partially regain the level of fitness and, to be able to do an East Coast swing and complete a whole, 2.5, 3 minutes. But it's coming back. And so if I've got any advice for you, just start off walking. And if you can get the urban poles, which I think they may actually market them, it helps your whole body sort of recover, and it'll be really good, particularly if you've still got the back issues. So that's basically, if a few months of inactivity through not being able to dance could sort of devastate me and my back, I understand, what an awful degree of trauma has been inflicted on you, but there's hope.
Yeah, yeah. So that's we want to know about that. So, okay, so let's come back to the purpose part because before we move on to the practical things and the anti-aging,
Right.
this thing so that you could get in a whole different area. So your sense of purpose is so much more about now the prevention and the whole body health, as opposed to somebody comes in with a symptom and I'm only looking at a small part and I don't really change anything about this person's diet, health outlook, DNA. There's like nothing there that I can intervene in a holistic way. I see a little part of a problem. And
Yeah, it's actually it's actually more than that. I I kind of I got to studying back to the biochemistry and genetics, and it really came to me very strongly that we have in many situations the biological power that is within ourselves to change our aging and some of our health issues, um, without the use of drugs or major surgery. Obviously, I'm not talking about, severe traumas, or,
Mm,
where surgical procedures or other procedures are needed, or severe illnesses where you may need, drugs, therapeutic drugs. But for simply reversing some of the changes that we sort of think are inevitable with age,
mm,
like the weight gain, and the decreased ability to regulate our glucose and insulin pathways. There's a lot that we can do by invoking our own powers, by
mm,
changing our gene expression. And it's using lifestyle in many cases to be able to do that. So I kind of wanted to get away from the medicalization of our health to,
mm,
um, believing in what we were made for.
mm,
I'll give you one simple example. We all know that oxidative damage causes, changes in our skin, injures our organs, etc. And nature, as we evolved, gave us the ability to counteract some of that oxidative injury by antioxidants that we make ourselves. So to me, that's a really good example of figuring out how we can enhance our own antioxidant protection, without having to go to drugs and things like that.
mm.
So yeah, really understanding that we're made to be healthy.
Yeah, the very first functional medical practitioner that I ever came across was Dr. Mark Hyman. And so I've been following for him for a very long time. So I understand the whole outlook of looking at the body as a whole. Okay, so he works very specifically a lot with autoimmune diseases, those kind of things, and diet and the correct supplements, and eliminating toxins, eliminating yeast, molds. So that's very much his focus. But I listened to his podcast this week, and um, an old episode. It was just accidentally the one that came up, and it was about anti-aging, and it was fascinating. So it's sort of accidentally found a podcast that has so much to do with this, and um, a lot correlates with what you say. It's all those things that you can become very aware of. In a way, you take responsibility for your body so that you can live the best life possible instead of just saying, I'm old, tough luck.
Yeah, so Louise, in my recovery from that sort of that dark, unhealthy period, it took me several years to figure out what later became what I call the seven pillars of growing older, living younger. And what happened with that is, once I'd figured out what worked for me, I really felt sort of that I wanted to share that information with people. And, what works for me doesn't necessarily work for another person, but it would get them thinking about ways in which they can make small lifestyle changes, and that could have a very good effect on their ultimate health. And so that is why I ended up writing my book, which came out last year, just before my 76th birthday. called Growing Older, Living Younger, The Science of Aging Gracefully and the Art of Retiring Comfortably, which I'm sort of selling at a especially low price because I would like people to be, to be able to get it easily. Anyway, so that's that.
If you can come back, if you can come back on into the thread tonight, later
Yeah,
today or tomorrow,
yeah.
just post the link there so people can know how to get it. That will be great.
Oh,
On
okay.
Facebook or
Yeah.
YouTube.
Yeah, it's just
Facebook or
simply you go to gillianlockitch.com. But from that, I realized that I could reach a lot more people with information on anti-aging. And so from that, I ended up starting my podcast, which is also called Growing Older, Living Younger. And one of the benefits from that, Louise, that I think is really important in sort of the recovery from trauma is it enabled me to learn from experts. It enabled me to communicate with people all over the world. It enabled me to grow my network. So I've made some amazing new friends simply by having, the podcast and people writing to me and wanting to learn more. But to sort of follow up on how I got to be doing what I'm doing now. So, in the process of trying to understand epigenetics and the tools that would be helpful in helping me sort of correct some of the adverse things that had happened health-wise, through my original website, I got onto all sorts of media lists, and so I ended up going to the wellness show, as I described in my chapter. And there I encountered a company that was actually doing what I had been looking for, which was creating products that were both for skincare and for, just general health and wellness.
because
That
you look younger every time I see you. Just for the record.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate that. And one of the things, I never used to wear any kind of foundation, but they've just brought out a beautiful foundation. When you said the color, which is the best one that I've ever had, and it's for all skin tones and all skin types. So I try to be a product of the products, but having discovered this company and realizing, what they could offer, it was another sort of turning point in my life because I thought I'd always had a job previously, even however high, when you became department head or division head, whatever, there was still somebody that you reported to. It was a job, right? With sort of set hours, although one never worked the set hours, you always worked more, salaries, etc. And I thought one of my chapters in my book is Choose a Challenge. And I had never challenged myself by being self-employed or being an entrepreneur. And so that was another growing aspect for me that sort of came from my search for figuring out how we can help our bodies, help ourselves, sort of thing. And that's been another amazing, amazing journey. And I'm still on it and love it, meeting new people every day, talking to people about how I can help them find their personal roadmaps to aging well.
So what we basically want to say to people is that when you go through a trauma or even a series of traumas, it is not the end. It is not, it's over. It all depends on your attitude and your willingness to find lessons on it or find the magic question, how can I or what would I like to? Ask the questions that would help you move to a new space. That moment, that defining moment when you're on your couch in the dark eating chips, weighing 40 pounds more, feeling so depressed, and was there a single thought in your head that said to you, I've got to do something different?
Not at that time. I was too depressed, too feeling sorry for myself, too not wanting to talk to anybody. I would say that the defining moment came from when my son brought me back from the hospital 3 days after I'd had this major surgery and thought I was going to be, being pampered in hospital for at least a week. And he said to me, Mom, if you want to get back on the dance floor, we are going to walk. And,
Mm.
it was later the day that I'd just come back from the hospital. We went down in the elevator, went, outside and started walking. And I could only get, there are trees all along the walk, which is along the water. And I could only get to, I think, the third or fourth tree. Like I was walking for maybe 5 minutes and then really tired and got back. And he said to me, Mom, if you want to dance again, we are going to use this as a major rehabilitation. And I thought to myself, I'm a strong person. Nobody gave me my medical degree or anything. I had to really work for all of that. And I thought, there's no reason I can't do that. And I think that was the pivotal moment when I thought, what do I have to do to be able to get back to what I had at 55?
You
So
got you got tough love.
I got tough love. Yeah.
Okay, that's
And
awesome. And I'm so happy that we get to that point, because sometimes we need intervention from somebody else. Sometimes we actually need somebody else to go, this is not okay. It's actually time for me to be honest and say it as it is. So, well done to your son. Sometimes we have to be that person for other people, but sometimes we have to be that person for ourselves.
yeah, was inspired. I mean, I've read all the chapters, and I'd kind of heard the talks when you originally had them on the summit, and every one of them has a lesson of, you know, surmounting trauma. And you realize that there's so many different forms of trauma. I mean, mine was basically physical, apart from, well, I guess the psychological aspect of
Yeah,
widowhood
but
and
let's
loneliness.
let's tell
But
people how old you were if you want, and just bring the age into it so that people understand. There's an extra thing to this. If you want
Mhm.
to, tell them how old you are or how old you were
Oh,
at.
well, I'm happy to, that's interesting. A lot of the podcast interviews that I've done, somehow in my podcast, Growing Older, Living Younger, what I wanted to do was talk to people about the different, lifestyle things, and that they could, and bring experts in to sort of help on that. And I actually thought most of it would be sort of around nutrition. But it's so funny that so many of the interviews that I've done recently have focused on ageism, and, people being reluctant to say how old they are because they think it would, cause a problem. I say very proudly, I'm 76. That was when I launched my book and launched my podcast. And I'm proud, and, well, not proud. I'm happy that I'm here, and I'm as vibrant and active as I am.
Yeah,
And
I think
why
it's
should
very
I
important
hide?
that you say this.
Yeah, it's really, really, really important, and yeah. Anyway.
So we're saying that you, some of us live and we're quite content with our lives, and some of us live and we're not content with our lives. But nothing at any time stops us from pivoting into another direction. And
Exactly.
especially when some sort of trauma happens and we are willing to think differently, we may find, like you, version one, that all of a sudden you were enjoying your life and doing all these artistic things which a busy doctor probably didn't have time for. But also now, for you to know very recently have become an entrepreneur, written your first book, started a podcast, look amazing, really, have energy and drive, which is like, wow, can I please have some? Really, if you have spare, send it over. And literally have taken what was traumatic and turned it into something else and discovered a purpose that you were not even looking for it. It just came to you.
You know why this is so really important, even for people who haven't had a trauma. I mean, if you think about it, a couple of 100 years ago, people lived till their 50s and maybe early 60s, and people living till 80 and 90 was really rare. And one of the interviews I did is with a what does he call himself? A demographic something or other. But he was talking about the changes in demographics. And, I mean, the average lifespan now has extended to sort of like 82. So if somebody's, retiring at 65 or whatever the age is, they've got a long time to live where they can be active and contributing to society, contributing to their family. And so I think, beyond the trauma, it's just much more important to realize how much value you can provide to the world, regardless of how old you are.
There's another part to what I'm doing. I help people wake up from sleepwalking. So stop living the automatic life where your subconscious is driving your car, and which means you become very actively involved in your life, and you don't just do what your parents used to do, you don't just do what your peers used to do, and all of a sudden you become the master of your own life, which is what we call self-empowerment. And I'm extremely passionate about this, and I think this is part of the whole thing, because when you start taking care of yourself, I firmly believe that the first thing you have to do is look at your body, see how much beating it's taken, see if you're in post-traumatic stress disorder, see how your adrenals are functioning, see if you're taking good care of yourself. Start with that, because you need to do some body-mind work. Your body have to support you in order to do the mind work, but your mind also has to be really strengthened and overhauled, new connections formed, new synapses formed, so that you can change your thinking patterns. So everything really works together. And when you are a fully functioning, your best version of yourself, and definitely, we're all living longer than before. If I think back about my grandmother, at my age, she was a grandmother. And I don't think I look like a grandmother. So, um, but my grandmother was a real grandmother. She looked like a real grandmother. And nobody would ever call her anything else except granny. And I just feel that I've got so much life to live and so many things to do. So we have to take care of ourselves better. Okay. So in your book, you've got your eight pillars, right? Of
7 pillars, yeah.
seven
So
pillars.
yeah. So basically, and it sort of relates to the sort of course that I have. So the first pillar is all to do with, what is your genetic blueprint, and what are the things that are amenable to, that need to be changed and amenable to change. So genetics. Then the second pillar is, all, as you mentioned, all to do with mindset. How do you look at life? How present are you in the present? And what can you do to preserve your cognitive functions and sort of not slip into the sort of old age, not even full-fledged dementia, but just lack of memory and cognitive ability. And then there's a chapter, obviously, on nutrition, because I truly believe you are what you eat. And then everything to do with the physical body, so exercise, postures, sleep, that type of thing. I think I'm on to the 5th chapter, is all about your skin. And the fact that, you know, when we talk about ageism, that when people look at you for the first time, they're seeing your face, they're seeing your eyes, they're seeing your smile, and there's a lot that you can do to present a positive, and I'm using youthful in the sense of vibrant and healthy, not just, you know, no wrinkles kind of thing. So you can really improve your presence both from inside out and, you know, from outside in, using the right skincare, and we have these amazing devices that basically ranked our company #1 in the world for home beauty spa devices for like 4 years in a row. So that's chapter 5. Chapter 6 is all about the fact that you have to realize you're not alone in the world. There's 8 billion people on the planet, and it's really important. Community, socializing, being part of something is really, really important in healthy aging. And then the final chapter I talk about is you have to keep challenging yourself. You have to keep challenging your body by keeping moving of some kind. You have to keep challenging your mind, and there are lots of ways that you can do that. And then taking up something, whether it's volunteering, whether it's, you know, traveling to new places, learning a language. Like I did ballroom dancing, and I'm still struggling to learn Spanish, which I'm determined I will one day be totally fluent, because I love Latin music as well. And those are sort of the 7 pillars. But for every person, as you can see, within each of those categories, there are different lifestyle things that will work for them. So that's why I really say we're looking to help you develop your own personal roadmap for aging well. You know, my goal is to just keep going, you know, go, 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 go. And then when my time comes, just drop. I don't want to have a slow, steady decline with, you know, all these sort of adverse aging disorders. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, but there really is a lot that we can do nowadays, so that we don't just have to be resigned. This is part of it. There are just so many things we can do. So your book is a great place to start. Your website, I think the link is also, it's in the book. It's in Trauma to Triumph,
Yeah.
and it will be above your interview on our website too.
Yeah, and one of the things is, you know, I do something that, you know, I could never have done as a doctor. I like to offer people a free Zoom session with me where they can explore, you know, their own unique ways of perhaps growing older, living younger, that would be based on their personal lifestyle habits. And so I'm not sure where I could share that link, but
If
maybe afterwards in the Facebook.
Yeah, also you could send it to my lovely assistant Linda,
Oh, and she'll put
and
it. Yeah.
she'll post it for you on YouTube and on Facebook. Otherwise, I don't know if you are on Facebook. You can go in and comment as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Yes, I am. And the interesting thing about doing that way, as you've discovered, because I talk to people all over the show, so to be able to find a time that you're not either, it's not like 1 a.m. in the morning for you or for the other person. Those
It's supper time here. Your day
Yeah.
of barely begin. It's supper time here. So that's my next step. Okay, so right, so we are waiting for our last few um, reviews to come in. I'm waiting for 12 reviews. So
Mhm.
Amazon is taking their time. And then I am going to put up the price. So it was supposed to be up on Friday already, but because Amazon is so slow with letting the reviews show, they are taking forever to populate. So we're waiting for our 12 reviews, and then I'm going to put up the price, and then it won't be 99 cents anymore. So this is like literally the last week that anybody can get them in, and I'm going to put it up with no notice because I've been warning people for a while. So if you want to let your audience know if anybody still haven't got it, it's
Mhm.
such a good book, isn't it? It is just such a
Very,
good book. It's not
yeah.
fluffy.
No, and I just want to thank you and compliment you for originally reaching out to me, because it's been absolutely inspirational watching how you put together all that information, first as sort of the virtual summit, and then taking all of that and transforming it into a book. So I'm really, really impressed. I've learned a lot from you watching you over the last
Well,
year,
I
and I
learned
thank
from the
you for that.
process too. I thank you for that. I learned from the process too. I learned something very big. These stories, they can't just be watched once and forgotten.
Mhm.
People, there are just too much in there that people actually have to learn. So that's why I'm just going to keep on adding content to it. I'm going to keep on adding interviews because there are enough stories out there. There are enough inspirational people, and having the book there that you can go through in person, can go through it and you can read through it and you can make notes and you can apply it to your life, because all of us are going to resonate more with this person or with that person. But I
Mhm.
think there is a place for everybody's story. In everybody's story, there is something that's going to resonate with somebody, with everybody, with somebody. So yeah, let me see. There's our book, and I know it's still number one new release. Okay,
Mhm.
all right. And thank you for everyone who is sharing, and thank you for everybody who's bought a copy and have already told me how much they're enjoying it. I'm getting those comments in now. Those are super to get that. It's just amazing to get those comments. It's such a nice feeling when somebody's reading my book and they say, I'm enjoying this, and it's giving me so much value. Okay, so I quickly want to check the comments here. Okay. Okay, there's Antoinette. Hi, Antoinette. Nice to see you. Okay, we need to talk soon again. And yeah, it's a great conversation. Now you're going to make me blush. Okay, I nearly didn't share that. So,
Yeah, just one more comment about stories, if we've got a few minutes to talk about that.
mm,
When I conceived the book, because it's called Growing Older, Living Younger: The Science of Aging Gracefully and the Art of Retiring Comfortably, I actually went down the wrong track for a long time. And, I had like 300 pages of science. And
uh,
and then my daughter said to me, Mom, why don't you just tell your story? And so
mm,
ultimately, there's not that much heavy science in the book,
mm,
but what people have been saying to me all the time is, I love your story, because each
mm,
chapter is I probably revealed more than I wanted to, but each chapter is a very personal story of one aspect of that roadmap. And you're right. The people are saying, yeah, I love your nerdy facts and the science there, but it was the stories that I
yeah,
really loved.
yeah. And that's why with Trauma to Thrive and with the Trauma to Thrive Summit, it was about everybody's
Right.
stories and real people being vulnerable and sharing. But everyone have gotten through it, learned something from it, did some pivoting. Yeah, and it's amazing. So very inspirational. Jill, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your amazing story again. And looking so wonderful and inspiring us to live our best life. There's like no bigger advertising for that. And
Thank
yeah, I'm really so impressed with what you are doing. But age is not a factor. It is attitude. Trauma is not the thing that keeps us back. It's attitude. And we can find our purpose at any time. We can pivot whenever we want. We just have to be willing to be open.
Thank you, Louise.
Thank you for coming. Okay, I'm going to play the song, and then um, I'm going to see all of you on Sunday. I've got a really awesome subject for you on Sunday with Sunday Seeds. I've got a great question from last week's Sunday Seeds. Sunday Seeds is short, 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. I've got awesome thing to discuss on Sunday. So I hope I see all of you there. And thank you all for coming. Everybody who comes in afterwards to watch a replay will go in, will comment, share, give us hearts, help us to inspire Facebook to show it to more people. Thank you for coming. Lots of love to everyone.